Before we begin, consider subscribing for more historical deep dives into the forces that shape our world. Dawn breaks slowly over the Sahel. The wind carries fine grains of sand across the northern plains of Nigeria. In the distance, the call to prayer rises from a mosque in Kano, its sound blending with the hum of motorcycles and the murmur of traders preparing their stalls. For over 1,000 years, Islam has lived here, not as an invading army of terror, but as a faith carried by merchants, scholars, and empires. Long before modern Nigeria existed, trans-Saharan trade routes connected West Africa to North Africa and the Middle East. Caravans crossed the desert, bringing salt, textiles, books, and Islam. By the 11th century, rulers of the Kanem-Bornu Empire had embraced the faith. Later, in the early 19th century, the Fulani scholar-warrior Usman dan Fodio launched a reform movement that reshaped northern Nigeria. His campaign, often called the Fulani Jihad of 1804, sought to purify Islamic practice and challenge corrupt rulers. It resulted in the establishment of the Sokoto Caliphate, one of the largest empires in Africa at the time. But this was not terrorism in the modern sense. It was a pre-colonial religious and political reform movement, rooted in its time and context. For centuries afterward, northern Nigeria became a center of Islamic scholarship. Quranic schools thrived. Islamic courts operated alongside local traditions. Islam coexisted with indigenous beliefs and, later, Christianity in the south. Then, in 1914, Britain amalgamated diverse regions into one political entity, Nigeria. And that is where the fault lines began to deepen. Colonial disruption. British colonial authorities governed northern Nigeria indirectly, preserving emirs and Islamic institutions but reshaping the political economy. Western education spread more rapidly in the south, creating an imbalance in economic and political power after independence in 1960. Nigeria emerged as a nation divided along ethnic, regional, and religious lines. Military coups followed. Then civil war. Between 1967 and 1970, the Nigerian Civil War, also known as the Biafran War, tore the country apart. Though not driven by religion, it entrenched mistrust and militarized politics. By the 1980s, Nigeria was struggling under economic decline, corruption, and structural adjustment programs. Poverty deepened. Youth unemployment soared. Disillusionment spread, particularly in the north. In this environment, more radical interpretations of Islam began to gain influence. In the late 1970s and 1980s, Nigeria witnessed the rise of Islamic revivalist movements. Among them was the Metatsine movement, led by Muhammad Marwa. His fiery preaching denounced Western influence and mainstream Islamic authorities. In 1980, violent clashes between Metatsine followers and security forces in Kano left thousands dead. It was a warning sign. Throughout the 1990s, global events began to reshape local realities. The Afghan-Soviet War had mobilized Islamist fighters worldwide. Saudi-funded Salafi teaching spread across parts of West Africa. The language of global jihad, once distant, began echoing in new spaces. Meanwhile, Nigeria's return to civilian rule in 1999 intensified debates about identity and governance. Several northern states adopted Sharia law in criminal codes, sparking controversy and deepening religious polarization. Yet even then, most Nigerian Muslims rejected violence. But in Maiduguri, in the far northeast, something was forming. In the early 2000s, a preacher named Muhammad Yusuf began attracting followers. His message was simple but powerful: Western education and governance were corrupting society. Nigeria's political elite, he argued, had failed. His group became known as Boko Haram, loosely translated as, Western education is forbidden. Initially, it operated as a fringe religious movement. Members withdrew from mainstream society. They built a mosque and religious complex. Many followers were young, unemployed, searching for meaning in a country that offered little opportunity. Then, in 2009, everything changed. Clashes with security forces escalated. In July 2009, a violent uprising erupted in Maiduguri. Hundreds were killed. Muhammad Yusuf was captured and later died in police custody under controversial circumstances. His death did not end the movement. It transformed it. Under the leadership of Abubakar Shako, Boko Haram became far more violent. What began as a local insurgency evolved into a brutal campaign of bombings, assassinations, and mass kidnappings. Churches were attacked. Mosques were attacked. Schools were burned. Markets once filled with color and noise became scenes of devastation. By 2014, Boko Haram controlled large territories in northeastern Nigeria. Entire villages were emptied. Millions were displaced. In April of that year, the group abducted more than 270 schoolgirls from Chibok. The event sparked global outrage. The conflict spread beyond Nigeria's borders into Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. In 2015, Boko Haram pledged allegiance to the so-called Islamic State, aligning itself with transnational jihadist ideology. A faction later split to form what became known as the Islamic State West Africa Province. The insurgency fractured communities that had coexisted for generations. Farmers could no longer access fields. Traders feared highways. Parents feared sending children to school. The cultural damage was profound. Ancient traditions of storytelling, music, and scholarship were disrupted. Fear replaced trust. And yet, it is crucial to understand, most of the Islamic scholars rejected Boko Haram, but many Islamist scholars and some leaders supported the movement in hidden. The idea is to spread Islam and to form Islamic State across the Sahel State Islam. This terrorist movement has led to the destruction of millions of lives and properties across Nigeria. Both Christians and some Muslims that does not support their radical ideology has become victims. However, some scholars debate that, it's not a religious war but from their ideology and beliefs it's clearly a Islamization agenda cover under protections of a complex insurgency fueled by ideology, poverty, governance failures, regional instability, and global extremist networks. How did jihadist terrorism take root in Nigeria? The answer lies not in a single moment, but in layers. First, historical memory. Northern Nigeria had a legacy of Islamic reform movements. While different in context and nature, they created a framework in which religious renewal could be framed as moral duty. Second, political fragility. Weak institutions, corruption, and lack of public trust created space for alternative authority figures. Third, economic despair. Youth unemployment and poverty made recruitment easier. When a young man feels invisible to the state, an extremist group can offer identity, income, and belonging. Fourth, heavy-handed security responses. Extrajudicial killings and abuses, particularly in the early stages of the insurgency, deepened resentment and fed cycles of revenge. Finally, global currents. Jihadist ideology travels across borders, through sermons, media, and networks. Nigeria was not isolated from the post-9/11 global security environment. The effects of radical Islamist terrorism have been devastating. Over 2 million internally displaced persons. Tens of thousands of deaths. Schools destroyed. Agricultural production disrupted, contributing to food insecurity. Deep psychological trauma across generations. Culturally, entire communities in Borno and Yobe states have seen centuries-old patterns of life disrupted. The rhythm of market days, wedding celebrations, harvest festivals, all altered by fear. Terrorism also reshaped national politics. Security spending increased. Civil liberties debates intensified. Interreligious trust suffered. And yet, resilience persists. Civil society groups have worked to rehabilitate former fighters. regional military cooperation has pushed back insurgent control of territory. The story is not only one of destruction, but of endurance. Still, the danger remains. Extremism thrives where injustice festers, where education is neglected, where governance fails. As the sun sets over Lake Chad, fishermen cast their nets into waters that have receded over decades. Climate change, population growth, and economic hardship compound insecurity in the region. Nigeria stands at a crossroads. The history of jihadist terrorism in Nigeria is not a sudden eruption of violence. It is a gradual convergence of historical memory, political fragility, economic inequality, and global ideological currents. It has destroyed lives. It has fractured cultures. But it has also revealed something enduring, the resilience of ordinary Nigerians who continue to rebuild schools, reopen markets, and pray for peace in mosques and churches alike. The future will depend not only on military victories, but on education, justice, accountability, and opportunity. Because terrorism does not begin with bombs. It begins with broken systems. And unless those systems are repaired, the silence after the explosion is only temporary. Tell us your thoughts in the comments section, and thank you for watching.